All right, welcome back to the Eric Jr. podcast. I'm your host, Jake Klein. I'm joined here tonight by Chris Lynch. We have a jam-packed episode for you today. Three different segments to get to, plus a couple throwaway segments, as I like to call them. We are back, and where do you want to start tonight, sir?
Well, like you said, a lot to talk about. Big stuff happening for the Phillies, for the Eagles, for the Sixers. But let's start with the Sixers. They played last night, getting that massive, massive, unexpected win over the full strength Miami Heat, down your two MVPs. I mean, what was it like watching that game and seeing Maxey take over? Like, just the emotion of it.
Yeah, I watched this one start to finish.
Yeah.
Really, the Toronto game was such a sour taste in your mouth. For them to come out and to hang with Miami for the duration of the game,
Yeah.
to get contributions from the entire roster other than the two people that were clamoring to get some minutes in games like this, Charles Bassey and Paul Reed, to get contributions from Furkan Korkmaz, from Shake Milton, even
Yes.
from DeAndre Jordan, Paul Millsap, everybody
Yes.
contributed to this game. They found a way to win it. Tyrese Maxey took over at the end. It was cathartic. It was necessary. You needed a little bit of momentum going into this last 11 games.
Yeah.
Really, really nice to see. And hopefully, hypothetically,
Yes.
theoretically, something that we could build on.
Yes, and that's the plan. You know, the reason why this was such a nice game was because last game, like you mentioned, very not nice, very bad, awful, awful, bad, horrible game. The offense was as bad as I've seen it all year, really. Even before the Harden stuff, your two guys just had nothing going offensively at all, and you lost to a pretty mediocre Raptors team when there were five or six chances for you to win that game, and you weren't able to do it. Um, what that means for the bigger picture, we'll get into, but in the micro, that's a fun win, and that re-energizes the fan base, gets us a little bit excited towards the end of the season, like you said.
Certainly, and as you mentioned, I mean, there's no pressure going into a game like that,
Yeah,
so your expectation is let's just stay competitive.
yeah,
And for them to steal that and for you to
yes,
get these guys having good performances, it's been a while since we've
yes.
seen a good Furkan Korkmaz game. It's
No,
been a while since we've seen Shake Milton go on a little run offensively to keep our team afloat, to keep our offense afloat.
yeah,
And to see those things in a zero pressure game against a legitimate rival that was fielding their best players, I
yes,
mean, that is a legitimate thing to build on and to have confidence about moving forward, especially because you think about role players, they're usually not getting those extended minutes
hmm
unless it's a meaningless game. And this wasn't a meaningless game. It was a real regular season game against a real top seed in your
yes.
conference, and they went out there and they performed.
Yeah, it was great to see. It was great to see Doc come back to these guys, Shake and Furkan, who have been in and out of the lineup. The roles on the team just constantly shifting, churning through the season. And, nice to see them get their confidence back a little bit. Furkan, I mean, when he's on, the ball just floats out of his hand. Like, it's so quick and it's so nice. Um, and we just haven't seen it in a while. Like you said, he's been out of the rotation for pretty much the last 2 weeks. Um, you hope that that's a jump start. I would be shocked if he doesn't get some run in the next couple games. They got this West Coast trip coming. Those are going to be tough games. I would be shocked if he's not sprinkled in here and there a little bit. And if you can get him, you know, churning offensively, it's just such a massive boost to the bench, which, we know is light when it comes to firepower.
Yeah, and I mean, not just Furkan. Shooters in general are going to go through
Yes.
those cold spells. Furkan even specifically really embodies that when he was rolling. It
Yeah.
was a palpable feeling with the team. And it happened this year where you were resigned to the fact that this cold streak he was not going to get out of.
Right.
And
At
that
least this year.
he
At
was
least
not getting out of it this year.
yeah.
He's probably not cracking the playoff rotation for any significant minutes.
Right.
And here he has a tremendous game with 11 games to play,
Yes.
just maybe enough time
Yeah.
for him to get enough run, to get acclimated to the playoff speed that's going to be coming at him, and just confident enough to realize that they need him. They need that quick trigger. They need his gravity on
Yeah.
offense. And if he can find a way to turn the corner just in time, that could be the kick in the ass that we really need heading into the finish line.
Yeah, it could be a big boost. And then the other guy, Shake Milton, we've theorized over the years of the potential usefulness of of a good Shake Milton, of a Shake Milton who's playing to his capacity. We've seen it so little over the last couple years. he tapped into a little bit of that 2020 momentum last night. You know, he wasn't super efficient, but just the kind of shots he was getting, it felt like he wasn't forcing anything. He was really just like, they did a great job attacking Tyler Hero. Not to go on a
Yeah.
tangent, but like that was a clear emphasis on that, especially in the fourth quarter. Miami likes to switch everything, and that was clearly from the coach. Whoever's got it, get to that guy and go at him. And I mean, it was everybody. It was Maxi, it was Shake, Furkan a little bit. Even Tobias got in on the action in the fourth quarter. Got a couple nice, scoop layups and quick jump floaters.
Hmm.
Like, so that was awesome. And but back to Shake, it really felt like once he saw a couple shots go down, it felt like he was just right back in the rhythm. And obviously, that's not something that's going to be easy to replicate because he's not going to have the ball in his hands at all times. Like he is the third point guard on the team for a reason. Um, you're going to want the ball in Harden's and Maxi's hands most of the time. So the question, as always, becomes like, can he do it? Can he be consistent when he's not getting force fed these opportunities? And that's always been the big what if with Shake. And, you know, I still haven't, I'm not, it's not hopeless. I haven't given up. I still got some Shake Milton stock laying low, but, you know, it's always just this question and you just don't know until you see it.
Yeah, and I mean, both of these guys, Shake and Fur, these are irrational confidence
Yes.
capable players.
Yeah.
And good teams need those people on their bench.
Yeah.
They need guys that once they see that first shot go in, they're like, that's right, you are feeding me the rest of this quarter.
Hmm.
You need guys like that. And if they can find that, if they can channel
Just
that
for a
energy
quarter
again,
here, a quarter there, like,
exactly.
yeah.
There are going to be scenarios, unpredictable playoff scenarios, where there's foul trouble, where there's
Yeah.
maybe a minor injury
A
that keeps a guy
matchup.
out for a week, a
Yeah.
matchup. There are going to be those situations. And if they can become a little bit more comfortable
Yes.
with what they need to do to maximize and optimize what this team is capable of doing, then they have just enough time to maybe do it before shit gets real.
Yeah, exactly. And like the timeline is at a premium now. Like Doc's got to finalize his rotation, and then we'll see going into the playoffs because we know once we get there, he's not someone who's going to take a drastic change under normal circumstances, right? Like
Hmm.
barring injury, he's not going to fiddle with the rotation. So it's really like last auditions here, guys. Like who's going to get legitimate rotation and who's going to also not just minutes, plays, like who's going to get touches, who's going to get, these quick out passes because it's in Embiid's mind and Harden's mind. They know who they're playing with. They know who is hot, who has the quick trigger. Like when they're passing out of these double teams, it's gonna be in their head that like, well, Danny, I know he's gonna shoot it, and I know it's got a good chance of going in. I don't know if I can trust Furkan. I don't know if I can trust Shake. So it's not just Tobias.
But
It's nothing we can do about that. But
that's exactly
it's
why.
not just Doc they have to convince. It's
Sure.
those other guys too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I only mention that guy's name because you can see him trying. You can
Yes.
see a
Very
guy.
decisive last
You
night.
can see a guy like Tobias saying, "I recognize what is going to be needed of me."
Yeah.
But these other guys as well, what they do, purely shooters,
Yeah.
and a guy like Shake can break his guy down off the dribble, get to the cup,
Yeah.
momentum and one, can hang a little bit. Like you're gonna need these guys, man. But
For sure.
we've done enough talking about the guys on the other side of the team. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and talk about those prominent stars. I need you to talk me through how you're feeling about the transcendent generational elephant in the room being James Harden.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been such a weird week or so with him. I mean, we have the Dallas game and he looks fantastic. And I think that that's a really beneficial matchup for the Sixers. I think we can shut down a lot of what they do and they don't have an answer for Embiid. So it makes everybody else's job a little bit easier. But it just was effortless for Harden on Friday night. And then you come back Sunday and it's just nothing is working. And what's frustrating to me is he's both being to deferral. He's deferring too much in the first quarter. Obviously trying to get these guys. We've seen so many like passes to thigh ball under the basket for these easy hoops, and that's great. I love that, and he's opening up so much with his passing that was just missing from this team for years. But then there are these times where he just gets these blinders on and he's not moving and it's stagnant and it's a revert to the Houston offense, which we know is effective over the course of a season, but like in a pinch, man, when you don't have it, like that can't be your bread and butter. Like you can't just rely on that dribble step back because it's not going to go in every time. And last on Sunday, I should say, the Sixers needed functional offensive possession, and too many times it was James Harden dribbling the ball for 11 seconds, shooting a step back three, miss. And I don't want to take that away from his game because that's such a weapon, and when he hits it, it's so devastating. But I just need him to be a little more, what's the word? Like responsible. Like he is running the offense. He's got to do that sometimes. And I know he's playing with guys that he's not ultra familiar with and aren't up to the talent level that he's potentially accustomed to. Like those benches in Houston were always churning out guys who could hit corner threes and right now we don't have that.
Different skill sets.
Different skill set. Exactly. So I just wish you could have like I wish he could just morph into a little bit more Chris Paul, just like read the situation a little bit
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
And I know he can get a bucket, and I trust him to do that. But on Sunday night, you didn't have it, and you needed to get other guys involved, and he just didn't happen. And the Sixers lost a very winnable game
Yeah.
because of it.
That one was frustrating. We spoke a little bit pre-pod that we weren't, it wasn't dire. We weren't
Right.
talking about them not being able to get out of the first round.
The overreaction to the
Sure.
to the Toronto game is just was so obvious. Like obviously it was going to happen, but from the media just like absolute 10th level. Well, now they're going to get swept in the first round. Like
Yeah.
just like so predictable and so just
And then you flip that coin, and now after the Miami win,
yes.
now it's the same thing. You're talking about Tyrese Maxey, this guy, he's got to be most improved and all this. So,
Yeah.
In regards to James Harden, you mentioned him being too differential versus too much of the tunnel vision,
Yes.
but also needing to be responsible as the table setter.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of epitomized in a play or a sequence from him that we've seen frequently, which is need a bucket, things are a little clumsy. James Harden gets a switch that he wants, does a
Yes.
little bit of his dribble twisties, and beats his man off the dribble.
Yes.
Clearly has a man beat off the dribble. But because he doesn't have the lob threat that he's used to, and because he doesn't have the bona fide corner three shooters that he's used to,
And maybe he doesn't have the athleticism to get all the way to the rim that he used to.
the confluence of all that have led to some plays where he has beat his man off the dribble, gotten into the teeth of the defense, only to not really be sure exactly what to do.
Right.
And we've lauded him as a passer, and rightfully so. But in those super and the micro milliseconds of decisions where you have to decide
Yeah.
what you're going to do when the defense is, shifting and completely fluid and
Yeah.
unsure where the proper rotation is. We've seen a couple of plays there with some ugly turnovers.
Yes.
And that's something that
Forced shots, foul baiting, like all
weird,
of it.
awkward, mid-range, not quite floater shots.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing where it's clear to me that he still possesses the skill set to break a guy down
Sure.
and get into the teeth of the defense. The question is, can he still make the defense pay for doing that consistently?
Yeah.
Or
If
can he
he's
do
not-
that occasionally?
If he's not getting all the way to the rim and he's not drawing a foul, it is hard to see him adjusting to that reality. Because in the playoffs, we know because of recent evidence in the postseason, he's not going to get the same amount of calls. In the fourth quarter, he's not going to be able to hold somebody's arm and manipulate it in that way. I think that if we're talking like concern level, I think that that's pretty high for me. If he's not gonna, it's fine ultimately if he adapts. I just don't know if that's something he's going to do mid-season right now.
Sure, and we have very little time left. My question is, what does that tangible adaptation maybe look like? How do we start to work out some of those kinks this last
Yeah.
10 games? What are things that you might be looking for?
I mean, I would say like more decisive action when you turn that quarter, knowing immediately what you're going to do. Are you going to take 3 steps, pull it for a floater? Are you going to try to go all the way around the rim? Are you going to pass it out? Like, be more decisive in that moment. Obviously, easier said than done. And then, what else? Like, you got to focus on like getting all the way to the rim, getting as far as possible, because right now you're kind of getting that in between no man's land where unless you're like got this Tony Parker floater, like it's not really helping the offense for you to be there, and the teams are just collapsing, and we don't have the shooters to punish that consistently enough right
Yeah,
now.
and just to put one final thought on it, because of the physicality that's involved with that last surge, getting
Sure.
close to the rim, you could maybe see an argument for that is being stored up, everything that he
Hopefully, yeah.
has for these playoffs, because he knows that the reason that these clunky plays are happening, these
Yeah.
bad turnovers, is because he's not taking that extra, the word that we've been using, punishment, to put the onus on the officials to force them to make the call
Yeah.
instead of going halfway and still getting hit but not really getting
Yeah, he's
mauled.
getting nicked in these, but grown so accustomed to that being his default
Mhm.
that you do worry when those calls dry up like they did on Sunday. I thought the officials were very loose. They were not calling a strict game at all. Um, when that happens, like we saw the same thing with Embiid. He's not, he doesn't escape blame for Sunday night either.
Yeah.
He had a tough game, but those two guys, when the refs swallow their whistles, like you have to adapt.
I
And
mean,
we've seen both of them have trouble doing that in the past.
no doubt, and the pressure that is going to be on getting these
Yeah.
calls right.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Toronto game at the very end, a flagrant foul against James Harden that's
Yes.
quote unquote confirmed in the 2 minute report.
Yes.
How many games are we going to have in this year's Sixers playoff run where there are calls that in that 2 minute report we are referring to either because the call in game went against or for us?
Yeah.
And evaluating those decisions. I mean, that is coming.
They are two guys more so than pretty much anybody in the league, maybe Trey Young, maybe John Morant, that put so much pressure on the officials to make a call. And it's just
In the biggest of
and the
moments.
and that's tough to do consistently and get it right consistently. That's really tough.
Well, we're going to find out soon what that's like to
Yes.
experience that. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
All right. That's a well researched conversation about James Harden.
Yes.
You got to talk about your fella here, the guy at the helm,
Yes.
the guy on the sideline that's refusing to play young players,
Yes.
the guy who's going to go to his grave playing his vets.
Yeah.
That would be a one Doc Len Rivers.
Yeah, I mean, you have every opportunity. Embiid's out, Harden's out. You bring Charles Bassey and Paul Reed back from Delaware. They're at the facility. They're on the team. They're with the team. 0 minutes in a non-Embiid game. You give those guys. That is inexcusable.
Practice.
It's inexcusable. It's malpractice. It's all of these things. It's also predictable. It's also like not going to change because if anything, the Sixers won, and he's just going to dig deeper.
Just set us back.
It's just like, and I was telling Kevin this, our roommate, like friend of the pod. It is the Alonzo Mourning meme of like, man, he didn't play our two guys that we needed to see, but they won. And it's just like,
But how about the savviness of the play of Paul Millsap and DeAndre Jordan? I mean, those guys are great.
oh man, it's
Even those
just,
plus minus numbers.
it's gonna be tough, but like, it's either DeAndre Jordan or Paul Millsap seeing minutes in the playoffs. That's it. End of discussion. If there was even an inkling of an idea of a chance of snowball chance in hell of it happening, he would have played those guys last night. The fact that he didn't, we can close the book. We can stop talking about it because it's not going to change. It's all about managing the minutes with the guys around who's ever going to be center and like picking the matchups is what we're going to see because it's either going to be DeAndre Jordan or Paul Millsap. No, I am now firmly in the camp that we just have to accept it and move on.
I think that that's a healthy decision to make.
Yes.
My God, like the stubbornness
Yes.
is true. It's almost respectable.
Yes.
But if it wasn't coming at the cost of development and possible potential
Yeah.
to optimize, bench lineups and et cetera. But like, gosh, it is frustrating.
Yes.
But like you said, we got to come to peace with it.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't play him last night, he's
sure as hell. Yeah. Yeah. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. So we can move on. And by moving on, let's transition into the Eagles. We have not talked about their offseason much yet. I mean, so much surrounding the Harden stuff that we haven't mentioned really anything at all. They make one big signing. They bring in Hassan Reddick, edge rusher. He's gonna hopefully add some sacks to their defense that they were sorely missing last year. Other than that, all quiet. What's your thoughts on the Eagles offseason so far?
Yeah, it's been a strange news cycle.
Yes.
Because right out the gate, they signed Hassan Reddick. You say, oh, big little flashy signing. 3 years, 15 mil. That's legitimate.
Yep.
We've always loved our pass rushers. Javon Hargrave was great
Philly
to
guy
come.
as well. Yeah.
Philly guy. I mean, just solid, pretty universally approved move, I'd have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And outside of that, all we've gotten are what ifs and rumors.
Yeah.
They earlier in the offseason were trying to possibly acquire Calvin Ridley because of what happened. Weren't able to do that. They made a big offer for Marcus Williams to finally get that legitimate safety presence, the thing they've been missing since they acquired Malcolm Jenkins. But he decided not to come here. They've re-signed a couple guys. It's been really quiet, and some would argue that when Howie Roseman and the Eagles are quiet, that is an ominous sign that something is coming, that there is a splash coming. But I'll tell you what, nobody wants to come here.
Yes.
No quarterbacks want to come here. No cool free agents want to come here. I mean, we've got a kind of a peculiar coach and a weird kind of power-hungry GM and not a great roster of talent. So it's kind of understandable.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, a little disappointed. Zach Pascal, you didn't do it for me, man. Still a little disappointed.
Zach Pascal, who like in my mind is like a fourth line winger for the Buffalo Sabres or something, like instead of the Bills. It's just I couldn't get past his name being a football player. It's not a football name. It's a hockey name. That's just my take. We'll see if he provides any morsel of value to the Eagles team. And I may have to walk that back, but until then, I think I'll be okay.
What's your philosophy on free agency being exactly what they did with Hassan Reddick, where just plug one specific hole, one or two specific holes with the top tier guys, as opposed to trying to get 3 to 5 guys that are all going to play some type of role that differentiates and it's matter of importance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's logic to what they did, and they've had success in the past with exactly that model. You get the one guy, whether it be Alshon Jeffrey, whether it be Malcolm Jenkins, you get a guy to fill a specific need on the team, and we all agree pass rush was a very specific need, very big need, and and the idea that working in 3, 4, 5 guys onto a defense or whatever into an offense is not the most feasible thing. It's easier to deal with players who've been around longer. There's value in continuity, but for a team that was as lacking in talent in as many areas as the Eagles, to really just come away with that one acquisition. They ended up re-signing Anthony Harris. They still have holes basically all over the team. You would say wide receiver.
Greg Ward took care of it. Cornerback, Andre Sachare took care of it.
Yeah, every level of the defense probably needs a starter. Whether it's going to be, I guess you get the edge rusher, but, that defensive line is still, pretty thin. And linebacker, they have nobody. Cornerback and safety, they have limited options. They have one corner. it would have been nice to see at least a couple more holes filled. I know they've done some restructuring. The Fletcher Cox thing was weird. I don't
You
understand
seem a little
enough about
shocked
that.
by that. What's
I
up?
just like why? And if you're gonna make that decision, why are you re-signing him?
You know, one more year. If he had just been cut and it
Yeah,
was it,
yeah.
so unceremoniously, it would have left a really bad taste. You know, he
That's
doesn't have the greatest reputation as it is.
I mean, that's just football though. Like you see that with the Seahawks and Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
Like that's football. You don't get these ceremonial goodbyes. As we take a moment to shout out Mr. Claude Giroux for his years of service to that wretched franchise.
2010,
God
man.
bless.
We'll always have 2010.
Yeah, I hope the best for you, Giroux. And as I was watching that, they happened around the same time,
Hmm.
Fletcher Cox getting released, and I didn't yet know that they were going to re-sign him, and I was thinking about how great it was that in other sports you can do that, but football you really don't get that because of the way the contracts work, and the amount of games. There's
Yeah.
just so few. You don't really get that. Hockey, you can get it, and then baseball is great at it. With the Cole Hamels no hitter before he
Oh,
gets traded.
that's the greatest.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you don't get that in football, and so I thought it was just going to be on Serious Mooney's end to an all-time Eagle, but you bring him back. 15 mil seems very steep. If
Like
like
1 year.
it's, but surely you could have used that money.
For what? No one wants to come
Oh
here.
yeah, well I guess that's the
Maybe if we were New York or LA or
yeah,
somewhere, Denver, I guess, like somewhere cool, people would want to come, but nobody wants to
yeah. I
come.
guess that's the argument that there was nobody there. You might as well take up the cap, restructuring his contract or whatever.
He doesn't have the sack numbers, but he's still going to be a productive player for one
Yeah,
more year. He still is going to allow you to not be completely exposed with one position,
yeah,
at least. He'll still have the ability to offer some tutelage to guys like Milton Williams, and hopefully, whoever else you bring in this year's draft. So there's still certainly value to that.
yeah,
But big picture, free agency, gotta say it's a little disappointing.
yeah. Bit of a dud.
Bit of a dud. We'll remain level headed. This team is not going to win the Super Bowl next year.
No.
Even the most staunch Jalen Hurts believer is not claiming them. So, on that note, about a month away from the draft.
Yeah,
We still got a lot of time to fire
yeah.
off those hot takes, but it's time to start putting your foot down on certain guys, certain mid-round prospects, certain, top end of the draft selections. It's time to really start thinking, what are my takes going to be, and how confident do I feel with the veracity and with the unlikelihood, like
Yeah.
the Eagles taking a first-round linebacker, which I
Yeah.
am all the way in on, might I add.
Yeah, yeah, never gonna happen. But the counter to our discussion about free agency being a dud is, well, the Eagles have 3 first-round picks,
Huh.
so there's a lot of room to add value there. Now, I think we're skeptical on whether they would actually use all 3 picks. I think ranging from unlikely to a near impossibility.
Would love to get some live odds on them
Yes.
taking all three.
Yeah, I know. But they do have a lot of draft capital to add at these positions. And if you look at the makeup of the team right now, could do with a little more youth infusion. So I get, in theory, saving your big moves for the draft. There's gonna be a lot of wheeling and dealing, a lot of options on the board. Where are you right now in terms of positions you're targeting? Obviously, I know you're gonna say linebacker. Forget linebacker for now because it's not happening, and because
Okay.
I already know
It's
you.
not just a bit, but sure.
Yes, I know it's not just a bit for you, but for us, it's a bit. It's not gonna happen. But they have 3 first-round picks. Um, it doesn't. They just signed a pass rusher. That was their most obvious need. Um, does that sign Hassan Reddick preclude you from taking a edge rusher in the first round, or are you still all for that?
No, I think especially because of where it looks like the talent will be
Yeah.
right there in the middle of the first, I think that's definitely still an option.
Hmm.
That optionality for certain still exists. This strikes me as a classic 3 first-round picks. because there's a couple middling quarterbacks in there, there's
Yeah.
enough variables. There's a couple guys that have been injured, or a couple just like
Mm,
guys who are, super athletic profiles, kind of like risky players around that range.
sure.
My prediction's got to be at 15, the Eagles are taking whoever is most highly ranked on their board.
Yeah.
I would predict that would either be a defensive lineman or probably a wide receiver, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
because I think the possibility of one of those guys sliding to them there makes sense. At
Yeah.
16, you got to think they trade back, and then 19, who knows? But
Right.
you got to think at 15, they are taking an impact player, doesn't matter which side of the ball, at a position of need.
Yeah.
For me personally, I think I'm a little higher on these wide receivers than most. And I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of pushback to the idea of taking another wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
But just because you haven't succeeded in the past doesn't mean you can't pass up on good quality NFL starting caliber wide receivers.
Right. I think a lot of the apprehension is like, you can't run your team based on what you've done in the past. Those draft picks are gone. Like you're not going to get those back. You can't change them. You just have to, make your draft picks this year as best you can. And if you have a wide receiver high on your board, it's still a position of need. If you see somebody you like, obviously you can take them, but it would just be so Eagles to take, you know, four wide receivers in the first 2 rounds.
Oh my God, if they just took
And
two this year, that would be
yes.
incredible.
But the way the board's shaking out, you look at edge is going to be there's seems to be some value there. If one of these cornerbacks, I should say, if they slide, I could see the Eagles targeting them. We know Howie likes to go up and get his guy. If one of these top talents fall to 11 or 12, I don't think there's any reason to believe Howie won't try to move up. We could even see into the top 10, into the top 8 is likely. We know that the Jets at 10 and the Giants at 8 are both shopping their second first round pick. Those are definitely an interesting target for
If
me.
you had to predict about a month out, are they more likely to trade up or trade back?
I do think that they will trade up.
And you thinking it's for a cornerback, it sounds like.
I think either a cornerback or a edge rusher or a safety.
Oh, that'd be crazy to trade up for an edge rusher. That would be terrible. Unless you're talking about one guy and one guy in particular. You know who that guy is?
What's that?
Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah.
That guy
Yeah.
who's got, some stuff surrounding him.
All the physical traits that you want in a defensive end, he has it in spades.
You're right. It's all the non-football stuff that seems to be
Yeah.
what some are talking themselves into. You can't take this guy. But if that guy is there at 7 or 8, you gotta ask yourself.
He could be a generational talent. He's been the best prospect in this draft for 3 years. And,
Just because he doesn't love football, he's not
just
going to go top 5?
just because he doesn't, he was playing on a middling Oregon team last year and maybe didn't show the fire that Aiden Hutchinson had.
So the Seahawks would never take this guy. He's not fire enough.
Exactly. So there's a lot of variables in this draft. Having 3 first-round picks is not something many teams
It's not common.
deal with.
No.
Like it's kind of a good problem to have in a way, but it is gonna make for an interesting draft night because they could trade up, they could trade down. I think a lot of people's dream scenario is they take 2 guys that they really like and they trade that third pick for a first round pick next year. That seems unlikely to me just at this stage what we're hearing about next year's draft. The quarterback class will be a little bit better. Teams, they want to stockpile those picks. No one wants to give up a first round pick, just to move up just to get 16,
Right.
That's not a massive, you're not getting a player of massive talent there. Unless a team likes one of these quarterbacks who no one to me has been super
But,
inspiring.
because they're not inspiring, maybe that's around the range where some
Yeah.
teams start to talk themselves into looking at where like a Mac Jones went last year, just a competent,
Yeah.
solid quarterback, and say, look, that's what this team needs. We've got a bunch of the surrounding pieces. Anyway, it's plenty of time to get into the specifics about
Yeah.
guys that you're falling in love with and, which player you'd be willing to trade up for. Just The next time we pod, it'll be less than a month towards the draft. Because we haven't gone all in on free agency, this becomes a little bit of a bigger,
This is very important. Yeah,
hotter subject.
Howie did a good job last year. Pretty good draft, right?
Yeah.
Um, he hadn't had one of those in a while, so get the monkey off his back. Great. Got to follow it up with a decent performance here because this draft could make or break this version of the Eagles.
Yes, next
right?
half decade.
Next
No
half
doubt.
decade, absolutely. And when you have that many first round picks, a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure comes with it.
A lot of pressure. Wheeling and dealing Howie Roseman. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how he does. Now, there is one more team to get to.
Yes.
A team that season is not canceled.
Yes.
Unlike so many in Hollywood. Here we are to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yes.
The first thing I'll start with is I think I have a good nickname. It's not. It's something. I'm workshopping it, so I'm just gonna hit you right now with it. LTB.
LTB.
Luxury Tax Boys.
Oh wow.
Luxury Tax Boys.
I mean, for the first time in Phillies history, we go over the luxury tax, and it's to get these absolute mashers. I mean, the team obviously is not perfect. It wasn't perfect to begin with, and it's still not perfect now. But you bring in guys like Kyle Schwarber and Castellanos, who you expect 30, 35 home runs from. That's very good. That's going to be a very powerful offense. What is your take on the going, all gas no brakes? Alternate Phillies nickname.
Yeah, not bad. I am warming up to embracing this. I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
All right, because I have been scorned before.
Yes.
With high power lineups, but these acquisitions for essentially the same price as you would have gotten like a Chris Bryant to get two absolute just maulers at the plate, and with these changes happening to the game, no more shift and DH.
Yeah.
Like that, if you're
very important,
if you're gonna go all in offensively like this, then those are two pretty big pieces to have.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it's Sixers-esque in that the things that they're going to do well, they're going to do so well, and the things that they're going to struggle with are going to be so abundantly clear every time that they play. But like you got to just you have to be willing to say, good, thank you, you spent the money, and now Bryce Harper's prime hopefully won't be completely wasted. You have a legitimate shot to make some noise.
Yeah. Team could do with some more pitching. Could do with center fielder.
It's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. Still got that hole at shortstop.
Hey man, he's rising up. Bryson Stott, dude. I've shaken off the Dominic Brown trauma. I'm ready to embrace this guy.
What about the Scotch Kingu trauma? That's a little fresher. It's a little fresher.
The wound is still healing.
That's tough. I bought a cameo of Scott Kingery for my cousin for her graduation in 2020. He has not hit a baseball since. I think he's over 4,000 since I bought that. It was $40. I was like, oh my God, this guy's it's a steal. And he has not made contact with the ball since.
You've been able to do that for $40. No. Even during the pandemic and all that whack.
Cameo knew that he wasn't anything. Speaking of people who aren't anything, one move that was vehemently disliked by the franchise, choosing to bring back Odubel Herrera, who had a very mixed run in Philadelphia and has all of the bad stuff surrounding him that you don't like, the domestic violence stuff in particular. I was really disappointed that the Phillies, I mean, obviously when they decided to bring Odubel back last year, that was a hot button issue. The fact that his play was pretty subpar, and you choose to bring him back just doesn't compute with me. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Surely there were guys of similar quality that you could have gotten that don't that don't like put a bad taste in your mouth the way Odubel does. But right now he's the starting center fielder, and you have a guy in Didi Gregorius who had a real step back last year and was hurt a lot, and his defense suffered and his bat suffered, and he was a pretty blatant negative on the roster, on the lineup. He's your starting shortstop. are you going to get enough out of these guys to make a run at at the playoffs? I know it's an expanded field, but you're still in a tough division. There's still good teams in the NL. What's your confidence level? Like you have you have Nola, you have Wheeler, not a ton else.
Total question marks after that.
Total question marks. The bullpen, you sign like three guys, none of whom are particularly good.
That's what we call the Ray Styles special.
Yes.
Right there. 1 year deals for guys that ultimately aren't really worth much.
No.
You
So
got listen, you ask what, my expectation or, what
yeah,
I'm hoping for. This team's probably going to do pretty well in the regular season.
yeah,
And then every time they're going up against another team's ace or top two pitchers, they're probably going to look fairly average. I
yeah.
mean, I just don't know if this translates to going up against the best, when it comes to pitching. And that is going to be really frustrating to see them lose close games when their offense puts up 2 or 3 runs, but the bullpen is constantly giving up the starting pitching.
Yeah.
Three,
I mean,
four, five guys.
2 or 3 runs is, you know, you know, we're talking about 5 or 6 runs that this team needs to hold on to. Like that's the level of the bullpen needs to be good enough.
If they are like legitimately, if they're not in the top 5 of the league with the amount of average runs they're scoring a game, they're going to be in trouble.
They're in
Like,
trouble, yeah.
That's like a legitimate look at this statistic.
Yeah.
And if they're in that bracket, then they're probably doing enough to get those wins. And if they're not, then there's really no other way for them to get those wins.
Yeah.
Aaron Nola's got to bounce back.
Yeah.
Season's coming around the corner, man.
I mean, the one good thing I do think Vince Velasquez, he's going to put it together this year. I think he's going to.
This organization anymore, man.
Oh, I thought he's like 24 still.
My man
and
made a career off of one game. Yeah. Shout out Vinny V, dude. Always repped you, bro.
I mean, that
always
was
liked you.
Electric, that game. I watched it start to finish. That was unbelievable what he did that game.
Made a career and deserves every opportunity he gets after that because barely anybody could ever do that ever.
Yeah.
So, you don't have anything to say about another Philadelphia sports team, right?
Because actually,
this was quite an extensive conversation about the headliners here. But hey, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. If you got something to say, I'm going to let you say it.
Well, we've gotten through a decent portion of it, and we still have some time left. So if you'll indulge me, there is actually another Philadelphia sports team whose season has started. The Philadelphia Union, on the back of a conference final appearance in which they were tragically hard done by getting COVID right before the game. They lost 8 starters. Go back, listen to the pod. It was awful. They lose that game. Listen to the tape. They come back this year healthy, and they have started on fire. They've won 3 of their first 4 games. They are atop the Eastern Conference. They look like probably the team to beat. Not just in the Eastern Conference, but maybe in all of MLS. And that's just something that, as a day one Union fan, I never thought I would see. Like, they were just so bad for so many years, and they've really pulled it together. They have a Philly guy as their coach. They got these young kids that are coming up, but the team is really special. It's deep, it's good, it's fun to watch. They are the team that has the best chance to win a championship in 2022. Wow, what am I doing? They have the best chance of any, including the Sixers, including anybody else.
Any of the Philly teams.
Any of the Philly teams, they have the best chance right now.
Hot take.
To win a trophy.
Hot take it.
I mean, that's what it is. That's the truth. Right now, they're probably the best team in the MLS, and they haven't even gotten contributions from their star striker, who's been came over from Denmark, has had some visa issues, still getting warmed up and acclimated to the team. But the sky's the limit for that team. And if you want to see a winner, your best bet is to head down to Chester, watch those games. That's all I got for you.
My man is feeling himself.
Yeah.
And you know what? With a lot going wrong in this world, to see you glowing about your soccer team, I'm going to let you have this one.
Fantastic.
I'm going to let you have it.
I mean, they play hard every game, and they just...
That's it. All right, see, that's it. That's where we're going to cut it. But hey...
Fair enough.
We're rocking with them.
Lot we got through today. We're going to be back next week, because with these Sixers games, man... Each passing game, you get close to that playoffs, the tension's rising up, and the pressure with it.
This is why we pod.
This is why we pod. So thank you for joining us again, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.